What's up guys, Gray here, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be talking about hand cannons, and more specifically, kinetic hand cannons. And I want to hit you with something today because I'm wondering if I'm the only player out there that's going through what I'm experiencing right now. Now, in the past couple seasons of Destiny, we've gotten some incredible new hand cannons in the game. We've gotten Fatebringer back from Vault of Glass, we've gotten Palindrome, which I'm not touching on in this video because it's an energy hand cannon. And we've also gotten Eyasluna. These are all amazing, iconic Destiny hand cannons that have made their way back into Destiny 2. Naturally, there's a ton of hype behind these things, and rightfully so. There's some amazing rolls on them. They can do some very unique things. And of course, hand cannons are just fun, amazing weapons to use inside of PvP. But if you're like me, something has just felt off about them. There's so much hype, so you get excited to chase these rolls. You spend forever grinding these hand cannons. You get the roll you want and you go to use it, and it's just not performing like you expected. And obviously you can blame yourself for that if you're having an off day, your aim isn't quite there, and it just feels off. And I've had this happen to me the past few seasons, and honestly it's been pretty frustrating. I've gotten an amazing time loss Fatebringer, and it feels good. It's a very amazing weapon, but something about the recoil and the reticle on it just throws me. And I know this is sort of my Destiny hot take. We always see that meme that's like, what's a Destiny opinion that will get you killed? This is mine. I hate explosive payload. I don't like it on hand cannons. I don't like the flare on my screen. It throws me off when I see a white number, even though I hit a headshot. It just throws me off so much. And I'm sure if I spent enough time, I would get used to it. You know, I was there for the better Devils meta in year one, where explosive payload was all the rage. I know why it's amazing. I just don't like it. And it's part of what makes Fatebringer so good. It's got the nickname Flinchbringer for a reason. And then of course we move over to something like Eyasluna. This just got put in the game last month, and it's equally as amazing. It has some really nice perks on it. There are some perks that I really would have liked to see on it that aren't there. It does have things like rangefinder, but it doesn't have, I was really hoping to see like Eye of the Storm or opening shot, and neither of those are on Eyasluna. Regardless, I chased down a really good roll on that weapon as well, went to use it, and it just felt off. I don't know why. I would always hit my first shot, but it always seemed like my follow-up shots, I was either getting flinched off the target or I'm overcorrecting and missing those follow-up shots. I don't know if it has something to do with the recoil direction on both of these. I do have them pulled up here in D2 Gunsmith, and both Fatebringer and Eyasluna have almost perfect recoil direction. Fatebringer has 98, Eyasluna has 96. And they do have very different stability stats, but I don't necessarily think that the stability is my issue. And I've been so frustrated, and I finally decided to go back to my old reliable, something tried and true that I used forever that's gone through a lot of changes too. And of course, I'm talking about Dire Promise. This has been my favorite hand cannon across almost all of Destiny 2. I used it way back in the day when it had static rolls on it. I was so excited when they brought random rolls to the weapon, and I have a ton of kills across multiple rolls with this hand cannon. And I finally landed my hands on my personal 5 out of 5 God roll on Dire Promise, and to me it just feels better than any other hand cannon out there, at least kinetic hand cannons. And I think there's a few reasons for that, and I want to dive into it. Some of it's subjective, definitely personal preference, but some of it has to do with how the weapon used to be. Now, if you remember, Dire Promise was originally a 150 RPM hand cannon. It was sort of the king of the 150 RPM hand cannons for a long time. Of course, you had other ones like Waking Vigil and Spare Rations, which were absolutely incredible. But Dire Promise just reigned supreme. Something about it, the animation on it, the model of the gun, just made it feel so crispy and good. And then, of course, they all got switched over to 140 RPMs, and Dire Promise was one of the few weapons that wasn't sunset that still made that conversion over to a 140 hand cannon. Now, unfortunately, a lot of those 150s that got switched over suffer from the same problem, a major lack of stats. You look at like Waking Vigil now, it's terrible. The stats on it are horrendous. You would just never use it over something like Palindrome that's in the same slot. There's some really niche roles, and I'm sure there's people who love Waking Vigil for what it is, but it's a shadow of its former self. Dire Promise is an almost inverse, where I think it honestly feels better as a 140 RPM hand cannon. And now before you go screaming in the comments, obviously I know Fatebringer and IS Luna have far better stats than Dire. You can see my God Roll Dire here. I have it on the screen. It only has 65 range. But what makes Dire Promise so good is that it has such a rare perk combination. Dire Promise is one of the only hand cannons that can roll with opening shot and rangefinder together. With rangefinder and even not at max range, you can see I'm using Crossfire. There's one more sight that would give it more range. It can get up to 34 meters of range, which is really good considering it used to be a 150. When you look at Time Lost Fatebringer, even a max range right here, full bore, accurized, range masterwork, even with Adept Icarus, you could go Adept range, but this doesn't even have 34 meters of range. It's hitting 33.4. Of course, you have explosive payload, which will push that out a little bit further, but Dire Promise is in the same ballpark right there. IS Luna can go a little further. A max range roll on this can hit up to a little bit above 35 meters, which is nice, but at the end of the day, it's really only about a meter difference, give or take. Of course, looking at things like the stability, that's where things get a bit different. Dire Promise and Fatebringer have similar stability stats, at least with these rolls. IS Luna has a ton of extra stability, and of course Dire Promise has a way worse recoil direction. It's an 84, while the other two are in the high 90s. The other unique thing about Dire is that it has slightly more aim assist than the other hand cannons. With the sight on it, it ends up having 92 aim assist, which is higher than both Fatebringer and IS Luna. I'm not sure if that contributes to it feeling better. Obviously, we all know these things are aim assist cannons. Let's not kid ourselves here. But that coupled with the recoil direction, it kicks ever so slightly to the right. And I don't know if it's just me that is so used to that recoil pattern and muscle memory that with the other two, they're so perfectly straight, I overcorrect on my shots. I don't know if that's just me or if that happens to other people. But either way, I found it so interesting that when I switched back over to my Dire Promise, everything just came back together. Between using Fatebringer and IS Luna, I just felt so inconsistent in all of my gunfights. I was losing my ones, getting very frustrated. I even started using other weapons. I was tinkering with SMGs and pulses, which I love, but nothing beats that classic hand cannon in PvP. And to me, Dire Promise just encompasses that feel. And I wanted to make a video because it really can keep up with other insane hand cannons in that same slot. And I don't know if a lot of people realize this. Dire Promise is obviously a lot harder to get your hands on. It's a world drop, so you have to get really lucky. It can drop from the Gunsmith. It can also drop from like Dares of Eternity. I've gotten a few drops there as well, but it's not farmable like the other two are. You can't farm the dungeon or the raid to go after your perfect roll. You have to get lucky. But it's just something that I couldn't shake, and I wanted to share it with you guys because maybe you have one that you put in the vault because you saw all these shiny new hand cannons that were coming around. You had to get your hands on it, and if you're like me, your shot has just not felt as good with these new hand cannons. Go dig out your old Dire, dust it off, and take it for a spin in the Crucible, and I think you'll be amazed with how well it actually performs in the current sandbox. It's, in my opinion, the best kinetic hand cannon in the game. The animation, because it used to be a 150 with that recoil direction and the aim assist, it's just so snappy and crispy, and it feels so good. You'll be hitting your 3 taps left and right. So that's just my opinion. Tell me why I'm wrong. Roast me in the comments. Tell me all about it. Obviously, your hand cannon is a very subjective thing. We can look at the stats all day long, but if you find the one that vibes with you and connects with you, it's gonna be your best weapon. And even if the stats aren't better than everything else, it might perform better than everything else. So thank you guys for stopping by. Let me know what your God Roll hand cannon is. Of course, we've got Adept Palindrome up this week to farm. I'm definitely going to be going after that. It's an incredible weapon as well, but for the same reason as this. There's something about the model and the sight that just makes it feel better than the other ones. Let me know if I'm crazy. I really want to hear your opinion. So thank you guys again for stopping by, and I'll catch you in the next one.